allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. Today is Tuesday, June 4th, 2024, and the time being 6 p.m. The meeting of the Water Board is called to order. At this time, please silence all electronic devices. To comply with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the city requests that participants in the meeting complete a voluntary anonymous survey that is available on the table in the back of the room. Donna, roll call.
Scott Mangles.
Here.
Frank Massey.
Here.
Patrick Kennedy.
Here.
Tony Higginbotham.
Here.
Ryan Maddox.
Here. Okay. Rick, Darren's not here. I guess we'll jump right into it.
I put the agendas
Oh, I'm
together.
sorry. Mr. Massey? Any additions?
Motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting. Oh, look at it.
Second.
Minutes will stand.
Yeah, I apologize over the agenda. I put it together and before I heard from him, so I assumed he was gonna be here. He just couldn't make it tonight, so. I don't have a whole lot. We do have, if you notice, the Honda Tower and the East Tower is getting the mold and stuff growing, on it again. I contacted National Wash Authority is who, power washed those for us 7 years ago. Is that what we come up with,
That's what I
Donna?
was thinking, yeah.
And believe it or not, I think it's the same price as what we paid them 7 years ago. So the price to power wash the Honda Tower and the East Tower came in at $12,900 apiece for $25,800. We'll have 2 new water towers, fairly new,
Freshly clean.
leaky. They did a good job last time we had them in, so.
The question was posed to me, how can you have to do that?
Actually,
By our board president, so.
7 years ago when we did it, was the first time that we'd had them power sprayed. So 7 years. that's the only thing I have to go by, so.
It's your own choice. I mean, it looks good, that's all aesthetics is what we're going after. It's not necessary 100% because it just looks bad sometimes.
Right.
It's like what I explained.
Yeah. So keep in mind the Honda Tower was put up in 09, somewhere around there. The East Tower was put up in 2000, right around that area, so.
I mean, technically, if you had that growth on there, it could have hold moisture to some degree, but I don't know what.
I would think so. I mean, Frank's our water tower expert. So.
It's like something inside your house or anywhere else. I mean, it just keeps growing and growing and growing. It's because of the water.
Not a good thing.
No, not a good thing. It's just aesthetics. It looks better when they're done.
I mean, it is an eyesore. I was looking at the one as I was driving back to town from Indy this afternoon, and you can tell it needs some TLC, and then
Yes.
also the one by the high school, so the East Tower. How I guess how do they apply the anti-mildew inhibitor? I guess to Scott's point, and how long does that last?
I can't all I can go by is when we did it last time, you know, from when we built the towers, then how long it was. Of course, it's fresh, brand new paint, so it's gonna take a little bit of time to get established. And then, you know, you can kind of still see the dingy a little bit after they're done. So I'm assuming it probably grows a little quicker at that point. I know they do it on a lift, believe it or not. I would think that they would like hang off the side with some kind of hoist or something, but I wouldn't do it. No way. But they get up there with a power sprayer and do their thing.
What is it, 180 feet in the air?
To overflow. They don't have to go up that high to actually do the power spraying, but it's pretty close.
But that's like also that, I mean, because they're so tall, is
Yeah.
some of the price on that difference because the machinery they have to use to do it, so.
Didn't we look that up, Don? Didn't we pay $12,900 a piece the last time? So 7 years and it hasn't went up any, so I'm not, not complaining about that, the price anyways. one of the board members wants to do it.
I'd like to see it when it's scheduled, actually. Watch him do it.
I'll let you know.
I
Okay.
know one board member that can't do it.
My bid will come in at $50,000.
Then I make a motion that we accept this one.
Okay. I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say the same. Motion stands.
Thank you. So I believe on the email I sent yesterday, I put the South Tower Engineering Report, inspection report, again, for you guys to look at. So I was kind of just thinking about some stuff, and I met with the mayor a couple weeks ago, and I'm like, hey, you know, structurally, our South Tower's in good shape. I mean, it was built in '54, so we've got our money's worth by far, but I think there's a lot of life left in that tower. And I think I'd heard at one time, and I called Frank and we kind of chewed on each other's ear. I think I heard at one time that as long as we go back with the same color of paint, we can paint the tower. It's not necessarily the nicest looking color out there by any means, I'm not saying that, but I think that we can get some more time out of that tower. So I called Frank and I talked to him about it, and I think Frank kind of agreed with me that that might be something to look at if the board would entertain something like that. Frank, you can chime in anytime and
Well, I'm gonna make some calls to get the best people to do that, but you're basically overcoating it, which is all you can do. But there may be other colors now of that same type of paint, I'm not sure. I mean, they're coming out with something new every day, but typically it's been that silver because it sticks to the silver that's on there. So eventually you're gonna have paint, you know, an inch thick on there that you can't have. But as I told Rick, as long as you keep that steel coated, it'll last forever. So there's nothing wrong with the structure that we have inspected structurally wise or in functional wise. So besides the color of it, it's a whole lot of money to change the color to do that or build a new one. So, I mean, some more digging into it, we can get that inside or get this, if there's a different color or it'd just be brighter and prettier and still work.
Is there any regulations from like IDIM or whatever for the amount of times it can be painted?
Not that I'm aware of. When I actually just went through my sanitary survey with IDM mid-May, which went very well, but that was one of the things on the sanitary survey was that they don't care what you gotta do. I just was informed that it needs to be painted. So I told him that is in the works right now. Either, you know, we're looking at, you know, sandblasting, you know, recoating it that way or building a new one. I just thought about this 3 weeks ago, and I actually touched base with the mayor on it before I said anything to anybody, and I think the mayor's kind of on board with it. And honestly, I have another pretty big project that I would like to see. It got brought up to the top again with our broken main on North Broadway, so I'm looking at from 4th Street to 10th, and that's something we can talk about later to get that water main infrastructure replaced. So I was kind of looking at trying to save a little bit of money and getting a little more time out of that tower, and that's it.
Yeah, one of the inspections that IDM did, that was one of the requests that it be repainted, and I said, what's wrong with the paint that's on there? Well, they couldn't answer it.
Yeah.
Rick has to answer to IDM, so he's gotta say okay, but they can't. He gave no valid reason besides it's ugly. But that's our government we're dealing with, so. But it needs to be painted, but I told Rick, did he test the paint? Did he check the thickness? Did he any of that? And he didn't any of that, just thought it looked bad and needed to be painted. But it does, and we talked about it, so.
Yeah.
How long ago we've had it painted in the last,
So me and Frank talked about that, and we didn't paint the outside. What we had done is, it used to be the old grease lining. So we had the grease taken out and we had the epoxy put in, painted, or however they do that on the inside. So the inside was redone, and I think that was in the late 90s, 98, 99, somewhere around in there.
I thought we had it done like in the last 10 years or so.
That's what I told Rick, I was thinking the outside had, but I knew the interior had been because we removed that grease and put epoxy coating in there, but I couldn't.
You might be thinking of the power spraying too, Tony, because,
Yeah, I
you
don't
know,
know.
that's 7 years ago, and we've never had that repainted, and I've been here, it'll be 28 years, so.
Okay.
I'm okay having it repainted.
Pardon?
I said, I'm good having it repainted.
Oh, yeah, like I said,
Let's look into it.
Yeah.
So I'll try to get some information put together for next board meeting and,
Few quotes on it.
yep, see what I can do.
and the cost is gonna be considerably less, obviously, than doing it by overcoating it rather than, I mean, they're basically, they do rollers and brushes where the neighbors won't be impacted and so forth. I guess it's gonna be considerably cheaper for, to get another coat. St. Paul, Indiana just had it down here not too long ago.
Overcoat?
Overcoat, so.
Yeah, nice.
I was gonna say, you can't spray that, can you?
You could,
Well,
You should.
but we're not.
You could.
no, no.
No. So,
On the report, there were some other, sort of like where the cables are running, stuff like that, and like, is that stuff we really need to do? Or
There's a
just-
few things that we probably need to look at, getting them up to code, today's standards, I guess, you know, I think one of those was a bigger hatch maybe, and, there was a few things listed in there, which, you know, if we're gonna paint it, we need to do that too, so.
but, yeah, I'd look at that report again, because some of that may be not have to be done for, if it's an OSHA requirement, yes, if you do anything, but may not
If
be
it's just a
necessary.
recommendation, then.
A recommendation you
Yeah.
should do, so.
Right.
Mr. Mayor, did you have any concerns?
I just wanted to sort of bring up, as we were going through that conversation, if you all recall, we had that report done a couple of years ago, which then the IDEM component came along. So it started with what options do we have, right? It's not just, you know, like the color, right? It started with, here's the plan we talked about building a whole new one, starting over from scratch, keeping that in service, then dismantling. It is lead paint covered, so that's a part of the problem. So we've sort of worked our way through, start here and work backwards. And then Rick was like, what if we just paint over it, which I don't know that was really presented as an option. It was remove the paint,
Right.
sandblast it all off, then paint, right? And so as we sort of kept going through this process, so I don't want it to be perceived as we're just don't like the color. We've started with build a whole new one, all the way down to let's see if we can repaint it, so that we can work through that process. So I just wanted to clarify that a minute. Thanks.
I think you can bring them into consideration, especially with the amount of the savings and the other things we can possibly do.
Right. Agreed.
Anything else?
If you have any questions for me, I did put the MRO in there. I just finished it up, submitted to the state yesterday, so nothing out of the ordinary. I did did have my sanitary survey with the state, had 5 IDM employees down here for a day, mid-May. Everything went really good. We had some small deficiency. We did have one significant deficiency. We're not the only utility, and it's the lack of certified operators. So we're required to have a certified operator at the plant at all times, which they understand that a lot of utilities were working in that direction. I have 2 operators. That's actually, I'm sending them to school in the end of July. It's a 3-month course, and they'll be testing after that. So they have their time in. So it's not a matter of they don't have enough time. They can take their test, and if they pass it, they'll be certified. So if that doesn't work, they're going to require me to do what they call an operator in training. And that's where I have to document what each one of the operators are doing, the unlicensed operators, and I'll have to submit that to the state monthly. And they'll monitor that until obviously they get their license. So the other, everything else was just minor deficiencies, like Frank stated earlier, dealing with, you know, the guy that did my inspections been there 1 year, and we go out and we're looking at our wells, and 3 years ago they told me so I had a couple wells that didn't have sampling points, so they're like, we'll put Berg hydrants in. I'm like, okay, okay, so I bought Berry hydrants and had my guys go out and put Berry hydrants in. Well, all of a sudden, this sanitary survey, those Berry hydrants, we can't use those because they have drain backs under the ground. So now I have to look at sampling points, actual sampling, whatever they call them, at the wellhead, each individual wellhead. So all the money we spent 3 years ago is no longer good.
So you've been there a year?
Yeah.
I always like to ask their, what kind of, how long have they been into it, or what's their experience factor or something like that? I'd love to be able to do that sometime.
Well, Frank, we actually went through the whole sanitary survey, and we went out on site, and he did notice that we had hose bibs. He's like, Rick, you can't have those. I'm like, okay, I can just have them cut off. That's fine. And then I actually got an email 2 days later that said, hey, my supervisor got a hold of me and said that Berry hydrants do not cover the rule that you can't have drain backs underground, and it has to actually be a sample station. So I'll have sample stations at 5 different wells that I will never use, but they gotta be there.
When you try to hide those wells somewhat, now you're gonna have something that's gonna help or stick
Yeah.
out a little bit.
Right. The other minor deficiencies was, as little as there was a conduit broke on one of the wells. There was, we had some buildup on one of the valves in the alum room. Little stuff that was very easily taken care of, so.
Once the 3 operators gain their license / certification, I want to make sure we recognize them.
Yes, we can do that.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor, I know I already asked earlier, but you are on the agenda. Do you have anything?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. I would like to recognize Miss Donna. She has been going through a new payroll system. If anybody's gone through a new payroll system, they know the headaches that come along with this. So I want to say thank you.
Well, you're welcome, thank you. It's getting there.
Anybody have anything else?
No, sir. Okay.
Make a motion and close the meeting.
Have a second.
Meeting closed.